What's up, guys? Welcome to episode number 170 of Beef's Beef. Got a good one for you. I told you all last week that I was going to start doing solo episodes again. And here we are, second week in a row. I'm rocking the solo episode. I'm excited. But before we get to the episode, let's talk about our sponsors. First one, Crystal Lackey at Stockton Mortgage. Hit Crystal up for any home loan needs, any refinancing needs, anything you really need that goes with the house buying or refinancing process of a house. Hit up Crystal. You can get in contact with her at 502-615-0743. Again, it's Crystal Lackey, Stockton Mortgage, 502-615-0743. Stockton Mortgage is an equal housing lender. MLS numbers 8259. Crystal Lackey, MLS number 1735979. My next sponsor is Delium. Delium Clothing on Facebook or at Delium Clothing on Instagram. That's BDELLIOM. Again, BDELLIOM. Go check out Delium's clothing line. They're making the shirts for me. I got word today that they should be ready by tomorrow. So if you're listening to this on Wednesday, which is when I'm recording it, it should be ready by Thursday. And I will be in contact with you if you did order a shirt. If you didn't order a shirt, you're going to envy everyone else that has one. Delium is men's and women's minimalistic brand that focuses on modern aesthetic and quality. Everything comes pre-shrunk and ready to wear, so you don't have to worry about when you have to wash it or put it in the dryer or whatever. It's already pre-shrunk, so it's not going to mess up on you. His men's line is at Him's Gentleman Boutique in downtown New Albany, so go check out Delium Clothing at Delium Clothing on Instagram, Delium Clothing on Facebook, and last but not least, Mike and Cheese. You guys see me share the stuff for it all the time. They're setting up in different places out in Charlestown and Sellersburg. Go get some. Order some for delivery. Hit them up. Best mac and cheese in town. I put my name on that. I promise you that you're not going to have a better mac and cheese. You can hit them up at 502-548-6845. Delivery to Southern Indiana and Louisville. $15 minimum. Trays start at $10. Hit up Mike and Cheese. Get the pizza mac, the beef pizza mac. I'm over stuttering because I'm thinking about the beef pizza mac. And get the beef pizza mac. Tell them I sent you, and let me know what you think. Because honestly, I will stake my name on that. That if you try the pizza mac, I don't want to say this to too many people, but I'm gonna bust Michael's head a little bit. He wrote me yesterday about the pizza mac, and I just want to let you guys know what he said. I'm going to read you an exact text from him yesterday about the pizza mac. If I can find it. Of course, it's going to take me forever. And this is great. This is great podcasting. I'll tell you that. Let's see. He said, I needed to tell you something. He said, I've literally had years to come up with this realization since I've grown up with our staple Mama's Mac and have had Gouda on the menu for over 2 years. But I think Pizza Mac is my favorite Mac, which is insane to me. But I had some again and it just hit so different. Thanks for the idea. So that's the man himself who makes all of those, who came up with all of those and added mine when I gave him the idea. And I'm not doing this to toot my own horn. I'm doing this just to prove a point. Get the pizza mac. I promise you will love it. That's all I really have to say. So last week, just to go over some of the things that we talked about, I recapped Louisville Live. I recapped UCF. I talked about some of the visitors that was coming in for that came in for Louisville Live and what we were kind of looking at in the basketball recruiting process. I previewed Louisville's game against FSU, and guess what? I'm here to talk about all that stuff. First thing on the docket, though, Caleb Glenn, the player that I talked about last week from Male High School in Louisville, Kentucky, commits. I think this is a huge commitment. One, you're putting a fence around the city when there's a lot of talent coming out of the 2023 classes up to like 2024 in basketball, who I talked about a few of them last week. He puts out the post saying that he's committed. Rodney Rice, who I spoke about last week, comments on it. And Caleb Glenn, writes him back and says, bro, are you next? I mean, let's get this done. Let's play together. And that's a huge, big time get for Chris Mack. Get a guy that's it's a legacy in a few different ways. One, his dad played football for the University of Louisville back in, I believe, the late 80s, early 90s. So, I mean, that's a legacy right there. Then you have all the male guys from the past, big guys like O'Bannon. I can't, I mean, I'm mentioning O'Bannon because, it's a guy that I actually kind of know from having him on the podcast and et cetera. But, the biggest one being Daryl Griffith. But, Michael Bush in football. There's plenty of male guys if you go through the history of Louisville basketball and football and really all sports and look at male high school. It's been a hotbed of talent for the University of Louisville. And now to get another kid in Caleb Glenn, who I have heard compared to the likes of Dwayne Sutton. It's a big time get for the University of Louisville and out of their own backyard. And speaking on Rodney Rice, I haven't heard, to be honest with you, I haven't heard too many good things. I was reading some stuff yesterday, and remember, all indications that I heard was the longer that it went on after Louisville Live, the worse the chances were for the University of Louisville. It's now been almost 2 weeks since Louisville Live. Still nothing. Like I mentioned last week, Virginia Tech did hire his high school coach to be a coach there. Different things that I've read when he was here, he was indicating that he was a very, very high Louisville lean. Apparently he had told some kids at Peach Jam that he was going to go to Louisville. But like I said, everything as of now, I would expect him to go to Virginia Tech. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the things that I've read are wrong. But like I said, everything that I have read has led me to believe that he is going to end up taking the scholarship offer at Virginia Tech and going to play there. I would love to get him. If we don't, I think the backup option is definitely the transfer portal, which Chris Mack has done well with. If every player lives up, obviously, to the hype that they are coming into this season with, you went out and got Noah Locke, you went out and got Jared West, you went out and got Mason Faulkner, you went out. My mind's blank. Matt Cross. You went out and got 3 or 4 guys to fulfill needs that you felt your team needed, and there goes the poster. I'll worry about it later. That's gonna be good on the video. So I think that's something that a lot of coaches are going to have to navigate with now, going into the future. And who knows? Maybe the future also holds the fact that they may change the NBA rule back to being able to go out of high school as well. So that's going to be another thing that coaches are going to have to deal with. You have the NIL, so guys are going to end up wanting to transfer to different schools that maybe are going to help them out with that. And there's so many different things with the transfer portal that, like, think of let's say Rodney Rice does go to Virginia Tech, hates it there. You think Chris Mack's not going to hit that guy up and say, hey, there's still room for you over here. That's the type of thing you look for. Never burn a bridge if you're a recruit or if you're a coach in today's basketball or football because of the transfer portal. Now it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm not going to go there, but let's do it in the best way possible so that if something doesn't work out here, I can end up going back to that school if I want to. I feel like we're going to see that a lot, and we'll see. Like I said, Rodney Rice, at this point, I would guess that he ends up at Virginia Tech. I know I may have sounded a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for? Confident in him going to Louisville last week. I can't say that this week from everything that I've read. So this week is a fantastic week for the NFL. You see my hat. You guys know what team I cheer for. You guys also know that I'm a huge Louisville fan as well, which I don't know what would give that away. But the first one, Tom Brady's homecoming back to Gillette Stadium. You have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers visiting the New England Patriots. This is Tom Brady's first game against the Patriots since he left us. I'm saying us. I'm sorry, since he left the Patriots. You guys that follow me on Facebook kind of know how I felt about the Patriots drafting Mac Jones. And so far, he has not lived up to what other people said. He's kind of lived up to what I thought he would be so far. Threw 2 picks last game. Actually, he might have thrown 3 picks last game. Just hasn't played well, in my opinion, so far. Again, the season's not over by any means, but I'm sorry, he threw 3 interceptions last game. On the season, his stats are 737 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, with a QBR of 52. And then you have the ageless wonder in Tom Brady, who is having, one of his best seasons. They're coming off of a loss in LA, which, this is Tom Brady's 50th year in the NFL. And this was his first time playing in LA, which is insane to think about. Brady's 97 for 141, 1,087 yards, 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Leads the league in touchdown passes, second in passing yards, 7th in QBR. So the guy's 44 years old, having a season like that. Then you have, all of their wide receivers. I don't know if Antonio Brown will be back from COVID. You have obviously Gronk. You have Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. Cameron Brate looked to get into the game last week and play all right. Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette at running backs, and it's going to be a tough task for the Patriots. It's a Sunday night game in Foxborough, so it's going to be rocking in there. So I kind of wonder what kind of ovation is he going to get? You can't boo Tom Brady. It was really just a decision. He's like, I've pretty much given everything. I hate all these pieces that are coming out from ESPN that are talking about like, oh, well, Brady was going to leave 4 years ago and all this stuff. It's like he didn't. I don't understand it. The Pats are 1-2 with their lone win being over the Jets. I think 1-2, and the Bucks are 2-1 with their lone loss coming last week to the Rams, who right now look like one of the best teams in football. You have probably the 2 best defenders in the league. At least it's arguable. And Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey on that Rams team, and they made Brady look as pedestrian, I guess, as he's looked all season. He still threw for 432 yards and a touchdown. And he didn't throw an interception, but what's crazy is he led the team in rushing. 3 rushes for 14 yards and a touchdown, which is a good sign for the Patriots when you see how Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette have started out the season. But I don't expect the Patriots to win the game. I think it would be fantastic. Maybe this last week was just a look-ahead game whenever they look past the Saints, who came back down to earth the week before. But the Saints just, absolutely put it on the Patriots last week. They beat the Patriots 28-13 and really was never really that close. It felt like they just – not that they were just like – I don't know. It was – if you guys haven't figured it out, I don't know if Mac Jones is the answer. I hope I'm wrong, and maybe this is just early season jitters for him or what have you. Sorry, I needed to take a drink there. It's a lot different when you're doing this by yourself. There's a lot of – you can't really get someone else to fill space while you're taking a drink. So it should be a ruckus crowd. I do expect Tampa to win. The spread now is Tampa -7, so that tells you something because they usually say that they give you 3 points when you play at home. So that means that, in a neutral site, the Patriots are 10-point underdogs, which is pretty crazy in a game like this because this is almost like the equivalent of a rivalry game. But I guess we'll see. My early prediction: the Patriots go to 1-3, the Bucks go to 3-1. This be I'm sure this will be all over ESPN everywhere. I'm sure that's all they're probably talking about right now. I'll be honest with you. I play a lot of split gameplay basketball, so I don't watch a lot of ESPN unless Louisville's playing, or watch Sports Center right after a game goes off. I don't watch Sports Center as much as I used to, because everything is right at our fingertips now. You get things off Twitter, you get things off Facebook, you get things off the ESPN app. A lot of times it's not even really needed to even watch Sports Center, because you can see all the highlights when they tweet them out, or what have you, or share them on Facebook. So a lot of times you don't need to do it. The other big game in the NFL, especially in this area, is the Baltimore Ravens visiting the Denver Broncos. Why do you ask me if that's a big game? Lamar Jackson versus Teddy Bridgewater. If I had to guess, I would say this is going to be the highest watched NFL game of the season in this area. You have two of the most beloved players to come out of the University of Louisville as far as football goes, arguably ever. I would say, as great as Lamar was in college, winning the Heisman, and doing all the spectacular things he did then and still does now, I would still say that Teddy is more beloved in this city as far as the football team goes. I may be crazy on that, but that's just an honest assessment. I think that Teddy it's almost like Teddy almost kind of feels like our adopted son. Not that, I don't know. It's just a weird feeling you have to feel as like a Louisville fan to be in this city, that I feel like Teddy may be more beloved as a person, as a player. And that's nothing. I'm not shortchanging anything of Lamar, because I don't think Lamar's a bad person by any means, but it's just different. Both teams have winning records. Denver is probably the biggest surprise team of the season so far. They are 3-0. The game is also being played in Mile High Stadium in Denver. If you look at the ESPN, the matchup predictor, they give a 54.8% chance for the Denver Broncos to win. I believe the Broncos are they're a 1-point favorite. There's a lot of things going into this game. Last week or 2 weeks ago, you had Lamar finally get the monkey off of his back and beating the Chiefs. Then they go in and lay a clunker for 90% of the game against Detroit. You had 3 to 4 drop touchdowns, which is fantastic for me, because I had Marquise Brown and he absolutely sucked it up for me. And I believe I lost the game that I had him on the game, or that I believe I lost the fantasy league that I had him in. My fantasy teams did not do too hot last week. So thanks a lot, Marquise Brown. I did start him because he had done pretty well. And then I say, hey, they're playing Detroit. Lamar drops 3 or 4 dimes right in his hands. He drops touchdowns or long catches. I think this should be a great game. But like I said, last week you have Baltimore traveling to Detroit, losing for a good amount of the game. Lamar converts a 4th and 19, which leads to a 66-yard field goal attempt for Justin Tucker, who, in my opinion, is the greatest kicker of all time. Smashes the 66-yard field goal, bounces off the crossbar, goes through, and wins the game. I don't know if you guys have seen any of the videos of Detroit fans reacting to this that were at the game, or whatever, but it's some of the funniest stuff that you'll ever watch. If you should look it up, it's hilarious. You should check it out. I think you'll definitely get a kick out of it. I think Denver goes to 4-0, and that'll put Baltimore at 2-2 in a division where the Steelers are not very good. The Bengals are the Bengals. They play Thursday night football tomorrow against the Jaguars. And then you have the Browns, who are arguably one of the better teams in the AFC. It's going to be interesting to go forward. I had Baltimore winning that division and the Browns still making the playoffs, but I don't know if anyone's looked any older faster than Ben Roethlisberger. That's a story for a different time, but man, that guy looks terrible. And I was listening to a national radio guy yesterday, and he was just talking about how pretty much the Steelers have kind of sold their own poison, if you will. giving that guy pretty much the keys to the car and saying, we're going to listen to whatever you want to do. He's the most important, the person with the most important last name outside of Rooney in the city of Pittsburgh when it comes to football. So I don't know. I don't know how Tomlin has survived this as long as he has. I know he has decent regular seasons, but his playoff production has not been great in the last 10 years. It's actually been downright terrible. So I don't know. Again, that's a story for a different time. Maybe I'll have somebody on here and talk about just some NFL for one episode, because there's a lot of stuff going on in the NFL right now that would be great to talk about with somebody. So last week I spoke a little bit about Monty Montgomery, I believe. Monty Montgomery, for those of you that hasn't seen, tore his ACL against UCF. It was a big loss going into the Florida State game, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. I really feel like the defense is still coming around. I felt like it was really coming around with him in it, and him being a star. We lost him in the first half, or we lost him for part of the Ole Miss game, and we definitely showed. They started just running right up the middle, and you saw a lot of that in glimpses against Florida State. Alderman, the man, the myth, the legend, the one who ran the pick six back, once he took Monty Montgomery's place in that Central Florida game, it's time to step up, man. I know you're a true freshman, and this is really going to be your first starts of the season. His first start was against FSU, and but you got to step up, and it's time to do that. So again, I mentioned that Louisville traveled to Tallahassee to play the Florida State Seminoles. Florida State 0-3 going into the game. You see the score behind me, and if you watch that game, it was a tale of two halves. I hate being so cliche and saying something like that, but it definitely was. Louisville came out firing on all cylinders. I stopped and got some food, and I'm walking out the door watching the game on my phone, and find myself yelling because Malik throws an absolute dime to Tyler Harrell. I believe it's a 59-yard touchdown pass. 59-yard touchdown pass to Tyler Harrell. For the touchdown, that was just absolutely on the money. You saw some things by Malik Cunningham in this first half that kind of gave glimpses back to the 2018 season. So far, Malik Cunningham is quietly having a fantastic season because I say quietly because there were so many people that were like, oh, great. It's hard for me to get excited about the season again because we have Malik Cunningham at quarterback. This is the season that he really gets to show, in my opinion, what kind of quarterback he is. Last year, he didn't play well. The season before that, he played really well. One more pass attempt, I've mentioned it in the past, one more pass attempt, and he would have led the nation in completion percentage. Malik Cunningham this season is leading the nation in touchdown rushes with 15. He's 28th in the nation with 998 yards passing, 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. But again, 15 rushing touchdowns. So again, Malik is not Lamar Jackson. But Malik is a fantastic quarterback. He had glimpses in that game. In the first quarter, he was rolling out to the right, looked back over the middle, very Madden-esque, because I do this a lot whenever you get quarterbacks that can roll out of the pocket and still complete a pass on the run. Comes right back across his body to Braden Smith in the middle of the field and converts a third and long to get a first down and keep the drive going, which on a possession that they ended up scoring on. You get 17 points in the first quarter, 14 in the second quarter. You see the score behind me if you didn't watch the game or haven't seen the highlights and you listen to my podcast, which I'm very surprised if you do all 3 of those that you wouldn't have at least known the score. Louisville didn't score in the second half. Lost Braden Smith with about a minute left in the first half. I didn't go back and watch exactly what happened, but from the things that I heard, it looks like he turned to make a cut after catching. His foot got caught in the turf, got tackled, and his leg bent the wrong way. He is out for the season, which is a big loss because I feel like the wide receiving core was finally starting to get it together. And now that you have 4 games under the belt, I'm going to speak more on this game, but I thought Mark Ennis made a fantastic point yesterday on the radio. I love listening to his show, by the way. 93.9 The Ville. What is it? 3 to 6 o'clock. It's called The Drive. I had him on here. You guys know how intelligent that guy is when he talks about things. But he made a very good point when I was listening to the replay of his show from Monday. And let's go back to the Ole Miss game. And you look at the second half and you say, well, yeah, I know Louisville scored 24 points, but Ole Miss really just stopped playing. The game was already in hand. And you kind of just throw that half out. Why is it not the same way with the way Louisville played against Florida State? Granted, I know the game is closer and Ole Miss still scored, but if you're going to give the pass in the other way, why don't you give it this way? I thought that was a very valid point that he made. I think the play calling did get vanilla, but I think the play calling got vanilla because it was like, you just lost your number one receiver. It's hard to really adjust that on the fly. I know you're a coach and you get paid to do that, but it's kind of hard to do that when it's a minute before halftime. You go into the half, you're up 31-13. You're kind of like, hey, let's get the defense ready to go out in the second half to get a stop in the first possession, which didn't end up happening, but that's a story for a different time. But and you also had to look at it like, do we already have the game kind of in hand? This team has kind of rolled over a lot of times already, losing to Jacksonville State, played well all the way down the stretch against Notre Dame, and lost the week before to I don't even remember who the team was. Got me messed up now. I can't even think of who Florida State. Wake Forest. Wake Forest beat them 35-14. This Florida State team, my buddy John, who I mention all the time, and also is a big supporter of the podcast, listens to every episode. I appreciate you, buddy. Texted it because it's funny because John is a big Florida State hater because John is a Florida fan, which I understand. Most people don't like their rivals, and I get that. I'm not a fan of Kentucky. But he texted and said that he read somewhere that according to recruiting stars and talent-wise, that Florida State has the 20th ranked talent in the nation by their recruiting in the past few years. And, yeah, I feel like if there was 20 teams in this conference, they'd be 20th in the conference. I still put them ahead of Duke and Syracuse. I know the ESPN FPI rankings doesn't, but Florida State is not a very good team right now, even though they have a lot of talent. They did show flashes with their running game, as well as their quarterback, Mckenzie Milton, at times looked good, but I found myself watching Mckenzie Milton, hoping he didn't get hurt when he would scramble a little bit, and because if you didn't know, he had a horrific injury a few years ago. He dang near lost his leg. Very similar to the Teddy Bridgewater injury. And yeah, so the fact that he's even back and walking, let alone playing again, is fantastic. So seeing him scramble at all always makes me nervous. And I felt like he was running for his life a lot of times in that game. Louisville pressured him a lot. I believe they had, I'm not even sure how many sacks Louisville had. It was a decent amount though. Looks like 6 sacks on Mckenzie Milton. But going into Wake Forest, the takeaways from this Florida State game, obviously we have to make an adjustment for Braden Smith being out. I don't know. I would say Jordan Watkins steps up and takes that position. There are rumors that Shai Werts is coming back maybe next week. He did warm up in pads during warm-ups last week, but took them off and was on the sideline during the game. Travion Cooley sat out the game with a minor wrist injury. Will be back for this week as well. You had Hassan Hall, who didn't touch the ball as far as a running back goes, only returned a few kicks. Not play last week. Maurice Berkeley played all right, but then you were led in rushing by Malik Cunningham, you ran for 131 yards as a team. Your leading rusher had 56 yards. The running backs have to give Louisville more if they're going to beat this Wake Forest team. This Wake Forest team, I think this is his third year starting, Sam Hartman. I would say right now you would probably list him as the best playing quarterback in the ACC. I'm not saying he is the best quarterback because you have guys like Joe Dukervich from Boston College that's out, or Sam Howell at North Carolina, who probably still has more talent. But right now, I don't know if anyone's playing better than Sam Hartman. You have a team that no one would have expected to be 4-0 at this point, and they're 4-0 with wins over Old Dominion. You have wins over Old Dominion 42-10, Norfolk State 41-16, and then Florida State 35-14, as well as Virginia 37-17 last week. Hartman has 9 touchdowns, 1 interception. Has a little bit less passing yards than Malik Cunningham does. I mean, this is going to be a big game for Louisville as well as Wake Forest, because I feel like this is both teams. This isn't Louisville's biggest test because I still think Ole Miss is their biggest test, but this is the biggest test in conference so far for Louisville. This is Wake Forest's biggest test in general, in my opinion, so far. Again, they still got to play Clemson and all that stuff, which Clemson did go down to NC State and lose in overtime. But this is a big game for the Cardinals. Louisville goes into the game as 6.5-point underdogs. Wake Forest averages about seven yards more per game, about 22 less yards passing, but they do average about 30 more, like 30 yards exactly more. 30 yards exactly more rushing. Their defense is also solid. Their average margin of victory is 24, where Louisville's is only 5. It's going to be a tough game for the Cardinals. I'm not going to sit here and lie and sugarcoat it. It's going to be tough for Louisville to go down there to Winston-Salem. I always forget about where some of these schools are in North Carolina. It's going to be tough for Louisville to go out of Winston-Salem and get a win. It's a weird tempo. For those of you that haven't seen it, I would suggest looking it up. Hartman will hold the ball in the running back's stomach for feels like ages, and then decide whether he's going to hand the ball off or throw it. Louisville has had success against Wake Forest in the past. The last few times they busted Florida State last year. I'm about to look up the all-time records here as far as against each other. Let's see here. I know they beat the brakes off of them last year. Here we go. Great website, by the way. I'm going to shout them out because I use them a lot. Winspedia. It'll tell you what teams' records are against each other. You can also look at the full game list and everything. So Winspedia is a great website if you ever wanted to look up stuff. Louisville won last year 45-21. They won the year before 62-59, but they did lose in 2018 56-35 and 42-32. Overall, Louisville leads the series 6-2. Louisville's on a 2-game winning streak, so I'm anxious to see what Louisville does in response to playing the team right now that's first in the conference. I know NC State is also tied with them in the conference lead, but as far as overall records go, it is Wake Forest lead in the conference at 4-0 and 2-0 in the conference. Let's see here just to make sure. And that's of course the Atlantic side. No, actually Wake Forest sits atop alone at 2-0. Louisville and NC State both 1-0. So, we'll see. I think it's going to be a tough road test for the Cardinals, but I think they can definitely do it. But I did ask you guys for questions again, and make sure I can pull them up and I can share my screen with you guys. So I did ask for some questions again this week, and I actually got some this week. So I'm pretty pumped that you guys that did reach out and put a question out there responded. So I appreciate it. I'm going to actually show them on screen so you can see them and see what I'm reading and all that stuff. The first one comes from Eric Deacon. And here it is. So his question, he said, in an earlier post of yours, I stated I still felt we were an 8-14 and that Ole Miss was just as improved and was just that much improved. I was laughed at, not by you, but by others. Question one, do you still think 8-4 is attainable for this team? And question two, Ole Miss versus Alabama, who do you have? Now, on that same post, I was also somewhat mocked. I think this week will prove whether we are like Lane Kiffin and Mad Hatters or whether we're geniuses. It'll also prove this week for two reasons. Louisville plays Wake Forest, which is a tough test, and their toughest test outside of Ole Miss, I would say. Second best team that they have played. They are ranked. And Ole Miss goes on the road to Alabama. So I'm answering the second part or the first part first, obviously. Or I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm kind of answering. I'm going in a roundabout way to answering both of these questions. Excuse me. You ask whether 8-4 is an attainable goal for this team. I definitely still think yes. Last week I predicted 9-3 with losses to NC State, who just beat Clemson, and losses to Clemson. I just predicted, if you're listening to this podcast, you could go back about 5 minutes and realize that I just predicted a win against Wake Forest. And Bama is a 14.5-point favorite over Ole Miss. I would say take that in the points. Ole Miss so far has scored 43, 54, and 61. Again, none of those teams have the defense that Alabama puts out on the field. I agree. But if you ask me, I would say that Alabama's team overall was better last year, and Ole Miss played them to the wire last year. Their defense is probably better this season, but I wouldn't say it's like head and shoulders above last season. But we will see. I think Ole Miss puts up a good showing. I still predict Alabama to win the game because it's in Tuscaloosa. But that game is going to be a lot better than what some people would put on. 14.5 points is a big spread for me in that game. If I was a betting man, which I am, but I'm not going to bet this game, I would take Ole Miss the points. I'm not saying Ole Miss is going to win outright, but I think Ole Miss is going to put up a good fight. And this is definitely going to be the best offense that Alabama has played thus far. We've only seen Ole Miss against Louisville, Tulane, and Austin Peay. But if it's not the best offense, it's right there on par, in my opinion, with Florida. I would say that it's better just because it's more high-powered, and it puts you at a disadvantage because of the speed-up game that it does. So I guess we'll see. We'll see if, like I said, Eric, we'll see if we're Mad Hatters, but I don't know if we will be. Next question is from Mr. Barry Parnell. How much does Wake Forest best U of L by? I'm guessing that's supposed to say beat, and my term is always you can't stutter on the punchline. Barry's a Kentucky fan, and it's funny. It seems like we always disagree on every one of our sports takes. And to answer your question, Barry, how much does Wake Forest beat U of L by? They don't. So there we go. And my last question here comes from Mr. Grant Shaney. And Grant's got to ask the boxing questions. And I'm going to go ahead and let you know, Grant, I put in a decent amount of research on this one. And so his question, Usyk versus Joshua, Wilder versus Fury, who wins the rematches? For those of you that keep up with boxing at all, this past weekend there was a fight between Usyk and Joshua. Usyk took the belt from Joshua, and they're already talking about a rematch in February or March. Wilder versus Fury was supposed to already be fought. I can't remember which one of them contracted COVID, but they pushed it back to, I believe, in 2 weeks. So, first off, Wilder versus Fury. I think Wilder comes back better this fight. I don't want to hear the excuses this time about fatigue. Don't put on some glamorous outfit that weighs 100 pounds. That's going to weigh you down as you're walking into the ring. This isn't WWE. No one wants to hear your excuses as far as why you didn't perform well in a fight that was probably one of the biggest boxing matches in the last, 5-6 years outside of Mayweather and Pacquiao. Which shout out to Manny Pacquiao, who announced his retirement today from the sport of boxing. An all-time great in the sport of boxing, and as well as an athlete in just any sport, bar none. I can't talk about boxing and have a sports podcast and not mention Pac-Man. Shout out to that guy and everything that he's done for the sport of boxing and kind of helping bring it back in the dark times that it was in, where not a lot of people watched it. And but it should be another great fight. I'm going to take Wilder in the last one, which would mean that there's only one thing to do, and that's fight again, which is crazy to think because it's like, well, they've already fought 3 times. There was a notice, I believe, was it a draw on the first one, and then Fury pretty much dominated Wilder. So I'm going to take Wilder at his word and say that suit did wear him down and fatigued him. But say don't make those excuses this time. Come out, perform, do what you're supposed to do, and win the fight. So I went back and watched the highlights from the Usyk Joshua fight. Usyk came out with what a contender is supposed to do. He came right at Joshua. He was outweighed by 19 pounds, but that he didn't let that bother him. Came right at Joshua, was tagging him up with hooks and jabs, keeping him on his heels. And the fight was kind of owned by Joshua in the 3rd round. And Usyk, I'm sorry, it was he owned Joshua in the 3rd round. And then rounds 5 and 6, I feel like it's kind of like when it looked like Joshua was going to make a turn, Usyk adjusted. Kind of looked like it was going to turn back to Joshua in round 9, and Usyk just kept making adjustments. It was kind of crazy to watch in the highlights. You felt like every time he was kind of taken back over, Joshua was taken back over the fight. Usyk kind of did his thing, made an adjustment, kind of maybe either started hooking where Joshua was throwing punches, or just completely kind of went at him and kept him on his heels. Usyk never stopped and went to the 12th round or went to the 11th round, and they said that Joshua needed to win those 2 rounds in their estimation to win the fight. And Usyk, I felt like, dominated those rounds maybe better than he did any of the other rounds. It looked like he almost knocked him out with about 10 seconds left in the fight, knocked him against the ropes, and felt like he could have kept going at him and maybe gotten close to a knockdown to end the fight, which, doesn't really mean much to anything other than maybe the judges, which it's the end of the fight. So what's that really going to adjust as far as the fight goes? But he ends up beating Joshua and wins the fight, wins the belts. And like I said, they've already said that the rematch is looking to be either February or March. By all indications from what I saw, Joshua's going to have to make a lot of big adjustments to win that fight. Or not, he's not a lot of big adjustments, but he's going to have to make a lot of adjustments. I think he let Usyk get comfortable way too early, which, hindered him in the long run. He didn't look happy when the decision came down when they unanimously gave it to Usyk. But from all the highlights that I watched, which was unbiased highlights, it was just highlights of the fight instead of just one person or boxer or what have you. I didn't see anything that led me to believe that Joshua was really in the fight at all. So I'm going to take Usyk in the rematch. But what say you, Grant? I'm always down to listen to what you have to say about boxing. I did speak with him, and I hate that I had to give away, who I had was going to win in the rematch, because I talked to Grant, and we are going to try to get him on for an episode before the Wilder Fury rematch. So be looking forward to that one, guys. I'm looking forward to the Louisville Wake Forest game. I know another thing. I've had a lot of you guys reach out to me about BJ and how he's doing. We're still great friends. I just go ahead and let you guys know that. He did let me know that this wasn't really it wasn't really something he wanted to do anymore as far as the podcast. He said he would help me out at any point that I needed him to, and this is the type of friend that I love to have. So before anyone gets sad about what I'm going to say and everything, I appreciate this 1000%, and there's no bad blood. And anybody that really knows me knows that me and BJ are still close as close now as we were then when he was on the podcast every week, sometimes twice a week. He went in a different direction. He's definitely going to be on in future episodes, just not as often as we, kind of thought. And he let me know, like, hey, I did it before because, I felt like it was something that could help you out. And there's just so much that goes into it. And I don't really have time to do it. And I don't want to give you just I don't want to give you a half-hearted notes and an episode and all that stuff. And to be 100% honest with you, I appreciate him just stepping up and telling me that, instead of just beating around the bush all the time, saying, "Oh, well, maybe next time, or maybe when I get." He just straight up told me. So for those of you that ask if he's coming back on, he will be on at times. I had talked to him. He did say he'd be down to do an NBA preview. So we'll definitely do one of those. But he won't be on as often as we thought before, but he's still going to be on. You guys still see him share the podcast. He actually wore the shirt last night when we were playing an open gym. And then I'm sitting there last night, and this dude first off, this dude's wild. We ride together in open gym most times. And you guys see that I'm big, or you can't really see because you can't see if you're listening, you can't really see. And if you're watching, I have it just from my shoulders up, so you can't really see the buffness that is the beef. But also, I have lost 40 pounds, which I'm pretty proud to say. Almost halfway to the goal of 100. Hopefully you guys can tell just the way my face looks on here that I've been putting in work and trying to do better as far as my eating habits go, and as far as drinking. I haven't had a soft drink in over 3 months. So I'm pretty excited about that. But so first off, this guy starts off with, the next time you get in my car, you need to bring a towel. Apparently I left some big sweat puddle on his seat. Look, I'm sorry, bro. We won 10 games in an open gym. We didn't come off the court for 2 hours. We won like 9 or 10 games. So of course a big fellow like myself is going to sweat. It's only normal. I burned the last time I looked. Let's pull this up here just to show you guys what we did yesterday. This is just in basketball yesterday. So I don't even know if you guys can see that. Probably not. You can see that my phone is disgustingly dirty. Maybe if we flip the light off here. Nope, that makes it worse. I apologize. So we burned 1,221 calories, played for an hour and 40 minutes, and didn't come off the court once. So he wants to complain about that, but then that's not even the end of the conversation. So this dude texts me and says, my girlfriends are playing each other, by the way. I will never question BJ's love for the game of basketball, because this guy bets on the WNBA, which I have nothing against it. Women's basketball. I know some people that listen to my podcast do. I don't have anything against women's basketball, but you'll never see me betting on women's basketball. But this dude is wild. Talking about his two girlfriends and Kelsey Plum and Skylar Diggins playing in their game yesterday, and the winner wins his heart. Uh, I don't even know what to say. This dude has got first, as much as you guys don't or see the difference in me, because I don't know if you guys saw that I trimmed my beard. This dude hasn't trimmed his beard, and I don't know. He looks like a tall, skinny Gimli from Lord of the Rings with his hair and all that stuff. I can't wait for you guys to see that the next time he does come on. And I can't wait to hear his response to me talking about this and the fact that I even brought it up. But he posed me a question. He said, if I had a legit chance to go on a date with one of them, but she said I had to bring a friend to being my wingman and take Brittany Griner out with us, would you do it? And of course, I'm going to say yes. With as many times as he's helped me, of course, I could be a wingman in that situation. I don't know if you guys can picture that, though, with me standing next to 6'8" Brittany Griner on a date, but I don't really think that I'm really her type. That's just a guess by myself. But I don't know. Guys, let me know what you think of the episode. Let me know how what you guys think of my responses to the questions. Please write me questions throughout the week, even before I even say that, I'm opening it up for questions. I love to hear what you guys think about the podcast, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. Share it for me, whatever, like, share, listen, like I always post. But anyway, beef out.